10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me, and one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, "No." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They've just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
So, Truth Seeker, that was Wesley Clark years ago, kind of trying to expose this agenda of needless war, and then tonight he's back on the mainstream media kind of, going along with the mainstream rhetoric about ISIS and invading Syria, when years ago he was trying to expose this agenda. Disappointing. So anyhow, the vote was for the Royal Air Force today to bomb Syria. Let me show you how their numbers connect to the Freemasons. Remember the very Masonic vote? Royal Air Force in Pythagorean Gematria sums to 74. The word Masonic is 74. Also, think about London, the heart of Britain, having that 74 Gematria. Remember, Masonic and Jewish Gematria 223, in simple English 74. The numbers in the votes corresponding with the Air Force itself. In the United States history, their Air Force was established September 8th, 47, by the 33rd President, a date with 74 numerology. Also think about the birthday in the United States where the U.S. Air Force was established, 7/4, July 4th. The date the Royal Air Force was established is quite interesting. April 1st, 1918, a date with 42 numerology. The word war equals 42. We're talking about advanced air weaponry. Imagine having a killing machine from the sky in 1918. Major tactical advantage. The word Freemason in the small way is 42 as well. We know how these Freemasons love to code their wars by their numbers. Also, what's interesting about April 1st is it has a numerology of 23, and why this stands out is because the word king, the big way, is 41, and king, the small way, is 23. So on the date April 1st, with a numerology of 23 for the Royal Air Force, talking about kings, royal. The U.S. Air Force, also by some very interesting numbers. United States Air Force has that gematria of 88, just like the words poison and program. So does the color purple. Wesley Clark had on the purple tie to talk about bombing Syria. 232, a re-scrambling of the numbers 223 and 322. The word Satan sums to 232 in gematria. It was the 33rd president who created the CIA, the NSA, and the Air Force. All things that are used to spy on us, make war, and cause problems in this world. The date of establishment, a very interesting date in terms of numerology. All of these are very special numbers, but we're focused on the Masonic one right now. The Masonic numbers showing up very thorough in these two nations' air forces that do things by these Masonic numbers. And think about the Bush family who were in Skull and Bones and how all of them have been in the Air Force. Now get this, Truth Seeker. The Operation Shock and Awe that began March 22nd, That came 2 days after the Iraq War began on March 20th, 2003. That war was made by the Pentagon, which is 5-sided, 5 floors above ground with a 5-acre court in the middle that sits across from the Washington Monument, the tall, skinny white obelisk that is 555 feet tall. From September 11th, 2001 to the beginning of the Iraq War was exactly 555 days. This is what you need to know about that number, Truth Seeker. The New World Order is not an order that's coming, it's an order that's already here. It's an old world order. It's the order that established this nation. Notice the word new in Pythagorean gematria breaks down to 5, 5, 5. N is the 14th letter, 1 plus 4 becomes 5. E is the 5th. W is the 23rd, 2 plus 3 becomes 5. 5, 5, 5. There's a reason for this coding. There's a reason for spacing the start of the war by 555 days. This is what I mean when I say these people operate by the numbers. The more you research, the more wrongdoing you see that they've done by this code. The Arab League, which is the United Nations of the Middle East, was established March 22nd, 1945, after the Middle East had been carved up into new countries in the wake of the end of the war. World War I and World War II really reshaped things in the Middle East. Their league for their new nations was established March 22nd. Again, the Freemasons, a very powerful order, an international order. They operate in the Middle East, Europe, North America, South America, Asia. They're all over. The Masons, a real network capable of this wrongdoing. The big boogeyman that has been banned from the Arab League is Bashar al-Assad, the leader of Syria. There's a Gaddafi speech you can watch at the Arab League from before his death. He's giving a speech after the death of Saddam Hussein, and he's saying any of us could end up being the next Saddam Hussein. We could be killed, we could be humiliated. During that speech, the camera continuously zooms in on Bashar al-Assad as if it has some psychic power, knowing that he's next. Since that, Gaddafi has been killed, or at least reportedly killed. Bashar al-Assad, look at his birthday, Truth Seeker, September 11th. This is no coincidence. This is a very special number to the Masons and the Zionists. A lot of people don't realize that September 11th is New Year's Day on the Coptic calendar, a calendar that many go by in other parts of the world. Also, Truth Seeker, Star of David, the symbol of the Zionists, has gematria of 119. The date September 11th can be written 11/9 or 9/11. So does all-seeing eye. Very important number. Just to show you that these numbers go on in more things than just war, remember when the net neutrality bill was passed earlier this year? It was passed on February 26, 2015. It was a 322-page bill. This is the footstep in the door for the government actively changing the internet, filtering it, creating new laws, new legislation, new punishment. This is the beginning of a very different internet, a 322-page law change that comes 3 months and 22 days after the start of the 114th Congress, which also came on the 114th day of the 114th Congress. A major piece of legislation by the numbers that will have a real shaping effect on this world, in this nation we live in. With regards to 114, the time of the 114th Congress, it's a time ripe for World War. World War equals 114. It was Pearl Harbor that got us into World War II. Pearl Harbor equals 114. Holocaust equals 114. This number coded heavily into World War II. History by the numbers, Truth Seeker. If you're new here, I have a wealth of videos, plenty more to learn, plenty more that I've taught about many other wars, many other topics. I just want people to wake up to numerology, gematria, and how it's used against us. You learn this knowledge, you can see what's going on, Truth Seeker. Until next time. Encore. If you're new here, Truth Seeker, I'll teach one last point about today's date, December 2nd, and the Freemasons. There's a form of gematria that's very interesting that I don't use that much. Notice today's date is 12/2, kind of like 122. There's a form of gematria where lowercase a through z are worth 1 through 26. There's 26 letters A to Z. Uppercase A through Z are worth 27 to 52, meaning uppercase F is worth 32. So capital F is 32, R is 18, E is 5, E is 5, M is 13, A is 1, S is 19, O is 15, N is 14. Added up, it sums to 122. Freemason in Francis Bacon gematria sums to 122. Remember, the Freemasons also have an obsession with the number 33. In Francis Bacon gematria, lowercase a through z is 1 through 26. Uppercase G is plus 7 more. Uppercase G is 33. And notice also that their symbol is a compass and square, tools used for measurement. In this video, we just showed how the Masons, who make war by the numbers, like to measure dates. We showed that in the bombing of Iraq, 555 days after September 11th. I also showed it in the end in the net neutrality video. If you follow my work, I'm routinely doing this kind of decoding. Today, there was a very Masonic shooting in San Bernardino, California, where CNN's lead witness was even wearing a hat with a Freemason compass and square on it. San Bernardino, California truth seeker has a gematria of 114. Today's shooting in San Bernardino came 114 days after San Bernardino's birthday. Again, we're living in the time of the 114th Congress in the United States, which is actively making legislation for gun control. Also, making the narrative for war with Syria, Iraq, and more. So again, truth seeker, this knowledge must spread. People must learn this language so they can see through the wrongdoing as I teach here. Thank you. Until next time.